All right, so in this video we're going to discuss rational functions, and specifically we're just going to find various pieces of this. So I know in the instruction says find the domain, which all kind of tie in, but all we're going to find for these rational functions, and how do I know it's rational? Because it looks like a fraction, but notice how that's a multiple term, so a polynomial on top of a polynomial, if you will. We're actually going to find three separate things here. We're going to find the x-intercepts, we're going to find the y-intercepts, and we're going to find the vertical asymptotes. Hope I can't even spell vertical. Vertical asymptotes. All right, so we're going to find these three things. And let's go ahead and take number 13 for our example here. So it just says r of x equals 4x over x minus 3. All right, so to find the x-intercepts, so just like every other function that we deal with, to find the x-intercepts, we plug in 0 for y. So to find the x-intercepts, plug in 0 for y, which r of x is the y in this instance here. So 0 equals 4x over x minus 3. I'll put the invisible 1 under the 0 just to comfort some people. We can cross multiply here, but with all rational functions, if I multiply by 0 with anything, it's going to be 0. So really, to find the x-intercepts of a rational function, all we need to do is set the numerator equal to 0, right? 4x equals 0. Because, right, think about it, in a fraction, 0 over anything is going to be 0. So if I set the numerator equal to 0, then it's going to give me my x-intercepts. For this one, you just simply divide by 4, x equals 0. All right, so my x-intercept here is 0. All right, we're done with that one. Let's go ahead and find the y-intercepts now. And just like for the x-intercepts, for x-intercepts, plug in 0 for y. So for y-intercepts, let's plug in 0 for x. Okay. So r of x equals 4 times 0 over 0 minus 3. Which we take a look here, 4 times 0 equals 0, 0 minus 3 is negative 3, 0 over negative 3 is still going to give me 0. So my y-intercept is also going to be 0, okay? All right, and then we have our vertical asymptote, okay? Now, that's where domain comes in, like I talked about earlier. So whenever we talk about domain, we're talking about all the possible values x can be. What are all the possible values x can be? Well, think about it. In a fraction, hopefully you've learned this from the beginning of when you started math, there's a problem with fractions. If I have a 0 in the denominator, right? So if it's like 2 over 0 or 5 over 0, that's something that we call undefined. Now, as you grew up in math, you're just like, oh, okay, well, that's 0, whatever. But actually what that means is that it's undefined, meaning there's an asymptote there, right? My graph cannot exist where the fraction or the denominator is 0. So we, as mathematicians, want to find those places where it does equal 0 so we can exclude them from our domain. But for rational functions, that actually tells us where our vertical asymptotes are going to be. So I just need, and all I care about is the denominator for this part, right? Because I don't care about if the numerator is 0, that's fine. But the denominator being 0 is my issue. So I just need to, so vertical asymptotes, I want you to think of it, it's like I'm finding domain, or my domain restrictions, if you will. Okay, so domain restrictions. So I'm just going to set the bottom, x minus 3 equal to 0. And basically I'm finding the spots where I'm going to have trouble. So if I add 3, x equals 3. So this is the one spot in my function that I cannot put my graph. So that is where my vertical asymptote is going to be at 3. All right, so those are kind of the basic things. Now, obviously, there's more to it, but this is kind of the beginner video of the basic things you need to find, and these are basically how you find it. Obviously, if you look at some of these examples here, they can get more complicated, but all the steps are the same. So just kind of recap. X-intercepts, plug in 0 for y, kind of like what I did right here. For y-intercepts, plug in 0 for x, which is what I did right here. And then for vertical asymptotes, we're finding the domain restrictions, so all I did was set the denominator equal to 0. All right, so that is kind of the rough go around here with how to find those three pieces of a rational function, I'll do another video with kind of more quick examples.